Ja, wir sind auf dem Almeria Presse-Event. Unter anderem einer der Partner, der hier dabei ist Motorex. Und Motorex hat uns gestern eine richtig gute Überraschung gemacht mit Lyndon Poskitt und einem wirklich super geilen Vortrag über Races to Places. Yeah, so Lyndon, I just introduced that we're here at the Almeria Press Event, and Motorex kind of surprised us with your presence and your presentation yesterday. And I must say I'm a frequent follower of your adventures and activities. And so we bumped into yesterday at the breakfast, and I was completely surprised to see you here. And we've seen your presentation yesterday about races to places, about the Dakar you did twice already, and also the video production on the Dakar you did in 2018 with your team. That was really amazing. You've got your bike here. Yeah, but you're not here for long. Maybe just introduce yourself to our audience so they know what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm Lyndon Poskitt. I've been travelling around the world for 5 years now on a motorcycle very similar to this one, but it's got a bigger engine and it's got a luggage rack and carries luggage. But I wanted to travel around the world as much off-road as possible and also doing races, so it was important to have a bike that could do everything. We've done about 200,000 kilometres now, and I think 8 or 9 international cross-country races along the way, and it's been a heck of a journey, and there's just the last little bit to do now. I say last little bit, still a long way to go. The bike is in Namibia and I need to get back to Europe from Namibia, so that's my plan for the new year, for 2019.
Yeah. So you're a real motorcycle enthusiast. We saw yesterday in the presentation you were racing everything that has 2 wheels so far. So how did you end up in adventure riding and the cross-country rallies?
And rally racing, so I've been riding motorcycles since I was 10 years old, so about 30 years now. And I always say to myself that I'm the jack of all trades, master of none, because I've never won any championships. I've always done well in every discipline, and I've raced in 7 different disciplines of motorcycle. So like trials, motocross, supermoto, enduro, cross-country road racing, all of them. And I just love riding everything with 2 wheels, so I'm passionate about motorcycling. But I think it was 2012 I did my first cross-country rally, and that came from being an adventure rider. So I loved riding long distance. I had a KTM 950. I liked travelling in the desert and off-road and struggling through sand and everything. And in 2012 I did my first World Championship cross-country round with the navigation, which is a big change. And I actually like the fact that it brings everything together. So you need balance from trials, you need speed from motocross, road racing skills for the real high speed stuff. Then you need mechanical skills, navigational skills. So it's like the sport that brings everything together. And for me, that was like the ultimate challenge when you just need to be good at everything. Yeah. You can't not have one element, you need everything. And that to me was really interesting and exciting.
Yeah. Talking about challenges, I think not only the races but also the traveling, the long distances, the countries you're in and the conditions you're in can be quite challenging. We saw something, was it the Simpson Desert?
Simpson Desert, yeah. It rains, they say it rains for 2 days. It only ever rains 2 days in the Simpson Desert, and it rained the day that I was there. And I got stuck in the mud in the Simpson Desert. I can think of like drowning my bike in rivers in Russia. Been some horrendous places, stuck in the mountains, in the snow in Georgia. There's so many different scenarios because everywhere I go, I try to do it off-road, as much off-road as possible. When I say off-road, I just mean non-asphalt, no tar. Try to stay on dirt roads, and you find some fantastic people and places that way. And it's been amazing. Yeah.
So, and travelers will know about the challenges of keeping your bike in a good shape or having repairs on the way. Yeah. So you've got a pretty technical background, so does it help?
Yeah, definitely. I feel for some of the guys that are traveling around the world with zero mechanical knowledge, because I do feel like I have an advantage there because I'm a mechanical engineer. I worked in aerospace for 17 years, so I've always worked on my own bikes, rebuilt my own engines, friends, and the whole bike to me is like second nature. You know, I understand the bike. As soon as something like starts to happen, usually I know what's going wrong, and I can like feel it or smell it or something, and I think that definitely gives me an advantage. It's good to know your bike, and one thing I always tell anybody that wants to do something like this is, you know, for years before, you should really think, like, I've never taken my motorcycle to a dealer ever for any work doing. Like, I've taken it to a dealer on my travels, but done the work myself. But actually working on your own bike, even if you don't think you know what you're doing, the more you do it, the more you will get to know the bike. And for traveling around the world, especially solo like I do, you really need to know your bike. And that just reads across onto the racing as well with this bike. For the Dakar Rally in 2018, I completely rebuilt this bike from the ground up, the wiring loom, everything, so that I knew every single nut, bolt, fastener, fitting, connection, what electricity went where and how. So if anything went wrong, I can fix it, because when you're in the middle of the desert, you need to be able to do that.
That's right. So as you said, you were riding solo, but sometimes you meet people, and yesterday you showed me an Instagram post of you where you had this picture of you on the moon. And there was one guy doing a comment that you will probably bump into Heiko on the moon, and Heiko is also vielleicht kennt ihr Heiko von unseren Folgen. Wir haben Heiko in Thailand getroffen und haben mit ihm noch das große Interview gemacht. Notch the World, Dr. Notch, Heiko Gantenberg. So you met Heiko in also in Thailand?
In Laos.
In Laos.
And it was that exact time. It was the time when he'd been to, when you helped him in Thailand. And he also helped me. I was in Laos. It was the only time in 5 years that I've been stuck, unable to repair my bike, and it was because the stator failed on the bike, the charging the alternator. It melted, and I had a new one because I knew it's a common problem on a long distance, well-used bike. So I had a spare one, but actually it damaged the flywheel. And when I came to change it, I saw the damage on the flywheel with the magnets and everything, and it was too risky to use it. So I needed to get a new flywheel, and it took 3 weeks to get a flywheel from Europe to Laos. And I used his Honda Africa, his Africa Twin, the White Elephant, which I named actually the White Elephant after using it then. And yeah, I used the White Elephant to ride to the capital of Laos to pick the parts up, which actually were the wrong parts, and then I had to go back again 2 weeks later. So, but by that time Heiko was back. Yeah, we made good friends, we did some things together, went our separate ways, and then we met up again in New Zealand, surprisingly. It was nice, just both happened to be in New Zealand, both took different routes to get there, but ended up in New Zealand. And then the same again in Canada. We both took different routes, but we both ended up in Canada at the same time. So yeah, we met Heiko 3 times on my trip. Yeah, I hope to meet him again one day, maybe on my way back through Europe. I'll call and see him.
Yeah, it would be nice. Okay, and now we're standing in front of the Rex bike.
Yeah.
This is your 450 Dakar bike, which you've done your latest episodes on the 2018 series of Dakar. For our viewers, maybe some of them know your channel, know the series about it. Can you tell them where they can find and what they can find on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so it's all on YouTube, Races to Places. So if you search Races to Places or my name, Lyndon Poskitt, you'll find all the episodes on there. So there's my travel episodes on there. There's also like full-length feature videos from the Dakar in 2017. There's a video series from 2018. There's 2 YouTube channels, so it's better just to search the title of the series rather than looking for the YouTube channel. But yeah, they're all on there. There's 130 episodes in total, so make sure you've got some holiday time or a weekend and when you find it, because if you get hooked on it, you might be sat for some time.
Yeah. I've watched your Dakar videos one weekend straight through, and it was really amazing, all the work. I can imagine how much work it is to get the footage, to get the editing, to get the crew moving, and for you also filming, repairing your bike, doing the race, trying to get some sleep.
Yeah,
huge respect.
Yeah, thank you. It's It is huge, and not many people, I don't think, realise what goes into it, and it's really hard to try and capture the moment and really share with people your passion and the moment things happen. So the first thing you do as soon as a bike breaks down, as soon as you have a crash or something like that, the first thing you do is get your camera out. It's so important, and sometimes the last thing you want to do is get your camera out. For example, when the bike breaks, you know, you just want to fix it straight away. But it's so important to get the camera out and share that moment. And same when you meet people. And I think that's the hardest, is getting the camera out when you meet people, because I would say 99.9% of people don't feel comfortable being filmed because they're not used to doing it. For you and I, it's normal, but for most people, they're not. So it's sometimes you get the camera out, and the reaction you get to getting the camera out is actually negative. So you've got to try and get them interested in doing it, and then I always manage it somehow or other.
Yeah, but you made even on the last Dakar, you made a lot of fans on the way, cheering you with signs with your name on it along the way. So also about or because of your great videos you're doing. So just be sure to check Lyndon's videos out from Races to Places and from the Dakar 2018. And there's also a full feature movie you're going to publish.
There is. It's already published from 2017. So they can see that one as well.
Okay. So maybe just because we don't always have a Dakar bike in front of us, maybe come closer with the camera. Let's have a brief look on this 450 KTM.
I can talk about this bike for a long time.
A long time, but just have a look around. I think the most interesting is all this navigation and electronic stuff.
Maybe I'll go through the bike from the front to the back and just point out some key differences on the bike. So if we started with the wheels are obviously much stronger than a production bike, much stronger spokes, and they also have stronger rims, so they're narrower and they're much stronger. They've got more material in them, so they don't bend as easy. And then the tyres, we use mousses. Most people are familiar with air in tyres. We use like a solid foam ring, which gives an equivalent pressure of about 15 psi for the Dakar, and that stops us getting punctures, and we can hit rocks as fast and hard as we want. The suspension on this bike is very different because it's 52 millimeters. Most bikes, KTMs, have 48 millimeters, and it's aluminium instead of steel, so it's lighter. Much more exotic, and unfortunately it comes with that much more expensive too. And the rear suspension also has some special features, like has rebound bypass to keep the wheel on the ground more, all the things that production bikes typically don't have. If we look at the navigation tower, this is the obvious thing that most people say, like, you know, wow, what is all this stuff on here? There's a lot of things, and there really is a lot to go through, but I'll try and keep it simple. The roadbook device here, the rotating roadbook, has a switch on the handlebars which moves it forwards and backwards. There's a paper roll in here with instructions on it. So basically, turn left here, turn right there, go at this compass heading here, pass this tree at this point, to try and make the rider know they're on the right track and they're going in the right direction, and keep them going in the right direction. In order to keep the trip distances right, we have two trip computers, a master and a secondary. This is just for if the primary one fails. And the idea is to use these buttons to keep the trip computer in line with where you are in the roadbook. And if you keep those two aligned all the time with the scenery that you see and the features that it explains to you, then you should in theory arrive at the end. We also have an electronic compass which gives a compass heading. So these are really the main navigation features, the ones up high. Then what we have on the bike is a GPS unit, but it's not like a normal GPS satellite navigation Garmin device. It's actually more for the organisation to track where you went and to make sure that you got collected the right waypoints, you didn't cut any corners or cheat or anything like that. You didn't speed in the speeding zones. All those important things is controlled by this. So as a rider, we do use this, especially for waypoints and to see which number waypoint we're on. But in actual fact, it doesn't give you any navigational information apart from once you're in the vicinity of a waypoint, it will take you exactly to the center, just so that you recalibrate where you start the next navigation from. And that's for safety, really. Group everybody together and make sure everyone goes in the right way. And the history behind that that is that in one Dakar, a lot of riders got lost in a big sandstorm, and it took days to find the riders with helicopters and everything. And after that, they introduced this system, and they said, you know, we need to, although we've got this paper, old school navigation way of doing it, we also need to have some technology to keep people safe. So that's what that's for. And then there's a couple of other safety devices on the bike. One is to communicate with the organisation. So if there's an emergency or something, you can talk to the organisation. There's actually a satellite phone inside it. That's useful to tell people you're okay if you stop and you have a mechanical, or to tell people you need a helicopter if you find somebody that's badly injured or something like that. So that's all the navigation tower on the bike.
What about fuel?
Yeah, that's another big one. The fuel system on the bike is like no other bike. The rally bikes, this is one of the big reasons why I chose to use one of these factory rally bikes for travelling around the world. They have 32 litres of fuel standard, and they use, like for example, the rear fuel tank here. They use the tank as a structural member, so they actually save weight as well. So they use this is a 17-litre fuel tank, and it's actually the rear subframe of the bike. It holds everything that's on the back of the bike. So you double up the subframe with a fuel tank, you save weight, and you've got capacity, and it's narrow, as you can see. And then on the front, we've got two tanks, about 7-8 litres each side. And the idea here is to keep the fuel low down. So the majority of the fuel is in the bottom of the tank here and here, to keep the weight as low as possible. Whereas on a production bike, typically we're used to seeing, until like the 990s and the 790 now, we're typically seeing tanks on top of sitting over the frame, and that makes it higher centre of gravity, so the handling is not as good. But what comes with putting the fuel low down like this is that actually there's nowhere for the exhaust to route through the bike. So you'll see as well the exhaust system goes all the way around the bottom of the bike and then comes up out of the back. So it's quite unconventional, the design of the bike, but it's interesting to see some of the new bikes like the 790 have actually started to lean towards this design, because it's actually it's ergonomically nice, it makes the bike narrow, it keeps the weight low, but there's obviously cost with doing it, so that's why majority of production bikes are not set up this way, because it's more costly to do it.
So, and ready to race on the morning of a Dakar, how much kilograms you've got here?
I think with all the bike dry is about 140 kilograms. I think with 32 litres of fuel on board and all the spare parts and all the navigation equipment and my waterproof jacket that I keep in here, and I would think it would be pushing 175 kilograms. It feels heavy.
Yeah, it feels heavy, but it's still less for us at adventure riders, usually riding a GS or a big 1190 or 1290 KTM. So that's a huge difference.
Yeah, and even compared to like a standard production 790 with no luggage or parts or anything on it, even if this was 180 kilograms, it's lighter, fully fueled than a dry modern day adventure bike. So and that's what you pay for, unfortunately, because you know, these bikes are typically double the price of a big production bike like that. So for example, to get this bike with the factory suspension and all the extra bits and everything that's on it, you're probably looking at around about 40,000 euros. So it's double the price of a big adventure bike.
But half the weight.
Half the weight, the price you pay for the joys of racing the Dakar. And I definitely wouldn't want to be racing the Dakar on a big bike like a 1200 like they did in the olden days. I mean, I've done it. I've ridden the big 950 KTM off-road and I love it, but once you've ridden one of these, it's night and day different. And now with the engines, like, you know, you said at the beginning this bike is a 450cc, but to put that into perspective, although it's a 450cc, they've worked so hard on the engines. It's not a standard like EXC 450cc engine. The engine has Pankel internals, very high-end parts in there. The rev ceiling is higher, all kinds of things to make the bike stronger, last longer. The clutches are different, the top end is different. But to give you an idea, the power of this bike is the same as a KTM 690. It's just that it doesn't have the torque. So you have to ride it high up in the revs all the time, but you've actually got good performance with a 450cc engine, which not a lot of people know because they think of a 450 as a production enduro bike, and it's quite a bit different. I would say it's probably 20% more than a typical EXC, maybe more.
Okay, so I will say thank you very much. I think now you will switch back on your other bike, which is in Namibia.
Yeah.
And yeah, for you as well, make sure to follow Lyndon on his last stretch, on the home stretch. It's only Africa to cross to get back home after almost 5 years. Thank you very much for the interview. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
And yeah, have a nice time on the road.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
On the road.
Yeah. Cheers.